Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined as I am every Tuesday morning. Although it's bordering on Tuesday afternoon, we are recording this a little later in the day than usual. Thanks for the flexibility there, Erickson. It is Andrew Erickson. How you doing here? 6 weeks into the fantasy season already.
Doing absolutely fantastic. My New England Patriots, 4-2, are atop the AFC East. I was talking to, I think it was Peralt on one of the betting shows earlier today, but all is right in the world. The AFC East, once again, the Patriots are on top. Jets, Dolphins on the bottom. They're both terrible. So feeling very, very good heading into week 7.
Yeah, well, we are going to talk about some Monday Night Football reaction here. We had another doubleheader. By the way, there's yet another doubleheader next week, Erickson. I can't believe it. I'm so tired of these. I don't like them at all. But we're going to do a recap there in lieu of our kind of macro level trade strategy advice, just because it gets to be too overcrowded in these episodes where we have multiple Monday night games. The reason the Patriots are in first place is because in the first of these Monday night games, the Bills lost, and they lost in pretty convincing fashion. Honestly, the Falcons won 24-14. It didn't even really feel all that close watching the game. Falcons really kind of pantsed the Bills. This game was in Atlanta, but it continues a trend for Buffalo where it took a fourth quarter miracle to beat the Ravens in week 1. They didn't look that dominant against the Saints. They obviously have now lost 2 in a row against the Patriots and the Falcons. I don't know who the best team in football or the AFC is. It's probably the Chiefs, which is annoying because I feel like this is a chance to finally bury them. And of course, Burrow is hurt. Lamar is hurt. So is the Ravens defense. The Bills are underperforming. We're just leaving another wide open runway for the Chiefs. I digress. Let's talk about this Bills-Falcons game. On the Falcons side, I don't even really know what you say. Bijan Robinson, insane, monster, great game. Drake London, insane, monster, great game. Those two had, I don't know what the exact number is, but it must have been 85% of the yards in this game for the Falcons. It was just all Bijan and all London. Kyle Pitts just 3 catches for 18 yards. Allegier did get a touchdown. Allegier just looks good. If he had the opportunity, I only had 3.2 yards per carry, but just watching him, if Bijan wasn't in this backfield, I'd be so excited about Allegier. But this is the Bijan and London show. Penix, I thought, looked better than he has at times earlier in the season. And then on the Bills side, James Cook does not get in the end zone, 17 attempts, 87 yards. Ray Davis does catch a a catch and run 16-yard touchdown pass at one point. So theoretically that could have gone to Cook. It did not. Khalil Shakir just 3 for 33. Josh Allen had 2 interceptions, just threw for 180 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns to Davis and Knox, but Allen was pretty bad in this game, Erickson. I assume you would agree with me that there's really not much to take away long-term here. It was kind of like the stars showed out outside of Allen, and we don't really have long-term concern about Allen.
Yeah, the Falcons players that you were starting got it done, and it was a reminder of why I wanted to draft Drake London so aggressively this offseason, the last 2 games. Basically, since the Falcons fired their wide receiver coach, Drake London has just been an absolute monster. So Darnell Mooney didn't play in this game. Ray McCloud, the receiver 3 for the Falcons, was a healthy scratch. So he also did not play in this game either. So you were expecting it to be London, Casey Washington as the other receiver, and then Kyle Pitts. This was a good spot for him too. There was no Mooney, and he laid a turd. It was a bad
worst game of the season for him.
Yeah, it was a bad game for Kyle Pitts, and it just looked bad too. One of his catches, he fell down. So just more inconsistency from Kyle Pitts. I think that he's a streaming tight end. I don't know if he's in the circle of trust when it comes to tight ends. I will say with the Falcons long term, Michael Penix, if you need a quarterback to stream, the Falcons have a really good schedule rest of the season. They actually have, this is per the FantasyPros strength of schedule tool, the number 1 schedule for fantasy quarterbacks belongs to the Atlanta Falcons. So Josh Allen on a bye week. You need a quarterback. Michael Penix could be your answer maybe this week. Or if you're looking for quarterback long-term, maybe you have a Justin Fields problem. Michael Penix basically could be an answer for your quarterback problems. On the Bills side, Josh Palmer got hurt in this game on his second catch. During the broadcast, they talked about, hey, Joe Brady wants to get Josh Palmer more involved. So I'm thinking, all right, baby, here we go. 5th-year breakout. It's finally happening. He catches a monster pass, I think, on the first drive, but gets hurt on his second catch. So you were expecting guys like Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir to kind of step up. Dalton Kincaid also didn't play in this game. Dawson Knox caught a touchdown on the opening drive, which is basically one of the only good things that the Bills offense did. Bills are on a bye week, as I mentioned, so some of those guys will be coming back. But, Keon Coleman, I think, to me, is someone that they need just to get more out of. If this Bills offense is going to take that next step. Now, he does have 6+ targets in back-to-back weeks. He's a 23% target share just leads the team in the last 2 weeks. So it's kind of like underlying encouragement for Keon Coleman, but obviously the box score stats haven't really been there. He hasn't ripped out the big plays or had as many touchdowns as we'd like. So I think he could get dropped during the bye week. And I think he's kind of like a sneaky kind of stash just to kind of see how things shake out, just because no one's really established himself as like the true alpha in this Bills passing game. So those are some of my thoughts from that Bills. And also, like, please, Ty Johnson, just enough of this playing him over James Cook. Please, just get him on the field, man. He's like, they pay this guy all this money, and they're like, no, we're going to use Ty Johnson instead. And I get they like him in the pass-catching role, but James Cook can catch passes too, man. Just get him on the field.
Just 2 teams on bye this upcoming week 7. It is the Ravens and Bills. I know the Ravens have been disappointing, but those were the 2 best offenses going into the start of the season. So, a lot of big name players on there that will be on your bench, even with only 2 teams on bye this week, with it being Buffalo and Baltimore. Let's look at the other Monday night game. The Bears win at the last second on a field goal, 25-24. Caleb Williams, 252 yards, a touchdown, no picks. Jane Daniels, 211 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick. As far as the quarterbacks, who are both obviously in their second year, went back-to-back in the draft last year, going head-to-head again here. The running backs, DeAndre Swift looked good. 14 carries, 108 yards, and passing the eye test, certainly I thought looked really good. Of course, he also had, the most receiving yards on the team, led by that 55-yard catch and run for the touchdown. He ended up with 67 yards in the receiving game. Swift did. Luther Burden had 4 targets, 4 catches, 51 yards. He had the most yards of anybody on the Bears besides Swift. Notable as a rookie coming out of the bye week. You tend to see that a lot, and that was something we saw with Burden here. DJ Moore. Did you see, by the way, what the fallout was from him going to the hospital? I was surprised to see that he was staying overnight in the D.C. area at a local hospital. It seemed like it was more of a precaution than anything else, but I didn't, unless I just missed it this morning, I didn't see a real follow-up to what that was in regards to or what the kind of long-term thing would be there. So worth noting, just to keep an eye on that. Roma Dunze, just 2 catches, 32 yards. He did have a touchdown that was called back by a horrific illegal formation penalty. So that was a bummer for me.
Yeah, bad week for the refs.
Horrible week for the refs. It was an abominable week for the refs. I thought there was a lot of this week, Erickson, was a lot of missed, or I would say incorrect offensive pass interference calls. There were so many calls this week where they either missed an egregious one or they called it and there was nothing there, taking points off the board for our fantasy players. So that was another frustrating
OPI as just get a point for fantasy.
Yeah.
It's I deserve that catch. If I wasn't interfered with, give me a point. Make it happen.
I wouldn't hate it. So that was on the Bears side of things. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 17 carries, 61 yards. He was just credited for 1 fumble, right? Because the other one went to Jane Daniels, or was he credited for 2?
It was kind of hard to It was kind of like it was a bad snap, bad exchange.
Yeah, it wasn't really Bill's fault, but no. I don't recall checking who was actually credited to. So it might have been him actually.
Yeah. Either way, it's not great that Bill has fumbled back-to-back games, but they're not going away from him. Chris Rodriguez played 1 snap. Jeremy Nichols had 2 carries. Now, Rodriguez entered the game kind of banged up, so I wasn't anticipating him to have a massive role, but Bill's still clearly their best running back in his schedule. Rest of season is number 1 in the strength of schedule tool for FantasyPros, so you got to hold him, and he continues to be a buy for me.
Yeah, is there anything here in the receiving game with the Commanders in terms of even with McLaurin out, Debo didn't really do much. It was Chris Moore had a touchdown. It was a nice catch. Luke McCaffrey continues to get inexplicably open 1 time a game. Zach Ertz had his usual 6-yard touchdown that he seems to always find. Was there anything here in the passing game? Are you interested in anybody besides Debo and, of course, McLaurin once he's back?
No, not really. McCaffrey, he's scoring on a bunch of longer touchdown plays, which isn't really super sustainable because he's not seeing this massive route share in the Commanders passing game. I think Debo's kind of doing what he typically does, where he comes out first month on fire, gets banged up, and then you start to see the production kind of tail off here. So I know that we talked about him on this show as a sell high candidate. And now this is kind of the reason why, because you get concerned about what happens when he does get banged up. And Terry McLaurin's going to be coming back soon. They thought that he had a chance to play this week. Obviously, that did not happen. So I think that there's a good chance he plays next week against the Dallas Cowboys, which I mean, if you can get McLaurin back, like that's an awesome matchup for him. So you're still going to go back to Debo. And he did enter this game like very questionable, so he may have been more hurt than was being led on. But these injuries happen with him, so just a reminder for guys, if you're holding on to Debo, that this production may not, or may tail off at some point.
I kind of blew past the Chicago side of things. Did you have any thoughts on that? I mean, again, like Swift looked really good. Everybody else kind of, largely underproducing, I guess. Because I mean, Luther Burden, I guess I should also, mention again coming out of the bye week. So guys like Swift and Burden, what do you think about them?
Yeah, Swift definitely makes me look really bad for my sell on him a couple weeks back, just because he came out of the gates after the bye week. The Bears' run game entirely looked much, much better. They were running the ball much more effectively, getting Swift out in space. Swift actually had the same amount of carries as he did the week before, and the yardage is like totally on opposite ends of the spectrum. Like everyone's like, is this the same running game? So I think if you have Swift, I still think that he is kind of maxed out as a fantasy RB2. But at the same time, you look at the upcoming schedule for the Bears, and it's Saints, Ravens, Bengals, Giants. It's a really good run for the running back. So I do like holding Swift for now if you still have him on your roster. I still like Kyle Monungai as a stash ad. Thought he looked a little bit better too, and he played a decent amount of snaps in this game. He saw a red zone carry. So I think Luther Burden, though, is the highlight because he's available on waivers, and you can still add him. He played 23% of the snaps, but you said like very productive. 4 catches, which led the team, 51 yards on 4 targets. He had a season high in route participation, 41%, 31% target rate per route run. And I also thought Olamide Zaccheaus looked really bad in this game. Like he had multiple drops. So when Ben Johnson and the team goes back to review the film of this game, I think it's going to be clear that, hey, we need to get Burden more involved in this offense. He needs to be playing more snaps in this offense. We need to get less of Olamide Zaccheaus on the field and more of Luther Burden. And also, if there's a chance that this DJ Moore thing is long-term, again, we don't have all the details about why he was being kept overnight in the hospital, but if he has like some type of injury, that would obviously be a boost for Luther Burden to see more playing time.
I didn't realize that I beat you in the Dynasty League that we're in together, thanks to DeAndre Swift. I was just looking now because I thought Bijan, his big game for you was gonna kind of be the nail in the coffin for me. But I was like, I'll go see what that, because I have Odunze, and I was like, well, when that touchdown came off the board, like I was cooked. But I did actually pull it out thanks to that Swift 55-yard touchdown. So
Swift's really making me eat it for listening to the sell in more ways than one. So
yeah, revenge game for him.
Tip your cap to Swift. He beat me. Yeah. So, there you go.
All right, let's get into our running backs to buy here as we jump into the meat of the show. Who is your first running back to buy, Erickson?
My first running back to buy is Javonte Williams for the Dallas Cowboys. So, on the Week 6 ranking show, Fitz and I were talking about Javonte with Welsh, and I was all ready to tee him up top 5 running back this week against the Carolina Panthers, and Fitz pulled some cold water on it saying, man, I don't know, the Panthers' run defense was pretty decent against Achane 2 weeks ago, and their Panthers defense showed up again. So they've held Devon Achane and Javonte Williams to less than 2.2 yards per carry in back-to-back weeks. They've given up 50 rushing yards in the last 2 weeks, which is kind of insane. They usually give 50 rushing yards like in a half, let alone in 2 games total. So yeah. He's had a bad game, but this is really his first really bad game all year long, and everything else is pointing to there's no issues with Javonte Williams. 85% of the snaps, 6 red zone opportunities, but he didn't score. He had 18 touches, he had 8 targets, and Jaden Blue only played 5 offensive snaps after Miles Sanders was placed on injured reserve. So Jaden Blue, I don't think is ever going to push Javonte for bell cow usage. That's not really what Blue profile has. He's more of a complementary piece, pass catcher out of the backfield, explosive playmaker. So I think even if he does see more involvement, I think Javonte's still going to be the clear-cut bell cow in this offense that is going to get better as the season goes on. They're going to get Lamb back. They're going to get offensive line pieces back. So I want to be buying Javonte Williams. I like the schedule overall coming up. Commanders at the Broncos, revenge game for Javonte Williams. Again, can't ignore these with some of these running backs. And then home against the Arizona Cardinals before a Week 10 bye week. So Williams, I think just he's been fantastic this year. 7th in rushing success rate. And I think that what's flying under the radar with Lamb returning is he is the tide that lifts all boats. And if him being in the offense just creates more scoring opportunities for Dallas, their defense continues to be bad, well, that means Javonte Williams is going to get a ton of opportunities to find the end zone, catch passes out of the backfield, and run for a ton of yards. So I want to buy Javonte Williams and maybe there's some managers that are still like not convinced, like, hey, is this legit? I think he is legit. So I want to buy him.
Yeah, I mean, this is the outlier so far this season, right? Like everything else, his worst finish in half PPR scoring prior to week 6 was RB25. And even that looked like the outlier because besides that, he's never been lower than RB14 this season. I mean, he's been really consistent. He's getting between 17 to 25 opportunities every game between the targets and the attempts. He scored a touchdown in 4 out of 6 weeks now. This is just his second week not scoring. And that Commanders game next week, look what they just gave up to DeAndre Swift, who we had been a little down on. And now we get to see Javonte Williams go against it. And Lamb might be back this week. They were talking about it as a possibility, so we'll see. But there is a small part of me, Erickson, who looks at Javonte Williams and says, because we talked about him as sort of a version of this year's J.K. Dobbins when we were talking during draft season in terms of a guy who had this bad injury history but was going to have this great opportunity in an offense because nobody else is going to compete for touches, and it was an offense that we believed in. It's really panned out that way. Dobbins did fall off eventually last year. From what you have described, and I would agree with you on this, but I just want to give you the chance to clarify, Javonte has looked good enough that we're not expecting a fall off, right? This isn't like, because he's looked really good, wait for the next good game and sell. This just seems legitimate, right?
Yes, I think that's legitimate. And I think the difference between Williams and Dobbins was getting injured all the time in different ways. Like it wasn't just one injury that was kind of plaguing Dobbins, where Javonte, it was just one really gruesome injury, and it's just taken 3 years for him to get back to, okay, this is what he was like before he got injured. Again, he's only 25 years old. So he's a relatively young running back. And last year he didn't miss really any games from being hurt. He just wasn't efficient last season because he wasn't recovered fully from his knee injury. So I think that he is all the way back, and you want pieces of this Dallas offense. And right now, again, after a bad game, I think this is an opportunity to try to swoop in and maybe scoop up Williams on a discount.
Is he a top 12 running back for you rest of the season? He is in consensus. He's RB12 rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Who's your other running back to buy?
So I finally know what to do with Isiah Pacheco. And I want to buy Isiah Pacheco. And that's because few reasons for it. He looked really good in the last game that the Chiefs played. And the way that he's being used lately is the Chiefs are kind of showing their cards a little bit with how they want this backfield to be deployed. They are trying to kind of ease out of the Kareem Hunt experience, embrace more of Isiah Pacheco. So in week 6, 77% snap share, season high in carries with 12. And this was after he had a season high in snaps in week 5. So they're continuing to play him more on offense. And this is per next gen stats. So against the Lions, he had 4 rushes of 15 plus yards. He had 4 combined rushes of that criteria leading up to week 6. So the explosiveness is starting to kind of appear with Pacheco when he's on the field. He had more targets than Hunt in this past week. He had 3 targets. Brashard Smith also had 4 targets, but that's the only way that he was used, the rookie running back. But most importantly, he had 4 red zone carries to Hunt's 1. So we're starting to see Pacheco kind of carve out a larger red zone role, which has kind of been Kareem Hunt's calling card, which is one of the reasons why Pacheco has been really hard to trust. It's because, Hunt's always going to vulture the touchdown. I don't think that's going to be the case moving forward here. I think they recognize Pacheco is the guy that has the most juice, and now they're going to use him more in the red zone. The pass catching is still kind of iffy because Brashard Smith is a receiver, so I'm not super bullish on that necessarily. But if the Chiefs' offense turns back to a fantasy football wagon, again, Rashee Rice is coming back. If this offense is cooking, a top 5 fantasy offense, then Pacheco is going to benefit. And for how low the view of Pacheco is, should I drop Pacheco? We've been getting questions about this all season long, and up to this point, I didn't really know what to do with him because, I don't know, man. He plays on the Chiefs. That's the one thing that you could hold on to. So I think that he is valued by his manager as basically nothing. So I think you can get him for basically really, really cheap. And I want pieces of this Chiefs offense if Rice comes back and we get the Chiefs of old and they're scoring 30-plus points every single week. Pacheco is going to benefit one way or another if he's the lead running back, which the last 2 weeks that has been the case. So top 10 schedule rest of season for the Kansas City Chiefs. I want to buy Pacheco on the dirt cheap because I don't think the manager that has him is going to value him nearly as highly as what his actual outlook will be.
Yeah, what do you think it would cost to get Pacheco? Because, I mean, like his weekly finish at the position in half PPR scoring, RB 44, 49, 43, 24, 31, 34. He's been inside the top 30 once, and it was only as high as RB 24, and that was just the week he caught a touchdown pass. And again, he caught a touchdown pass, and he still finished just barely inside the top 24 running backs. Like, he's only been double digits in half PPR scoring once this season. He should be cheap, is basically the point I'm agreeing with you on. So what do you think it would cost to get him specifically?
Tony Pollard, that gets it done. Do you want Tony Pollard anymore? I particularly don't. He's on the Titans. Just from a game script perspective, who's going to score more touchdowns the rest of the way? The Titans? Or not the Titans versus Chiefs, that's obvious, but Pacheco or Tony Pollard? Probably just bet on Pacheco being the guy. So I think Pollard is someone that you could trade. Jacoby Myers, he's been a ghost for the Raiders as a receiver. Maybe he's another option for a team that needs a wide receiver. So, or even like a backup tight end, right? If you have another tight end that you're not using, flip him for a player like Isiah Pacheco. So those are some of the options I was thinking about.
Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. We know Tuesdays are for scouting the waiver wire. Once you're done finding your diamond in the rough, head on over to Hard Rock Bet. See what their odds are to score another touchdown. See what their yardage total over is too. On Hard Rock Bet, you don't have to wait for week 7 to kick off to get in on the action. There's always something to bet on. If you haven't tried your first bet on Hard Rock Bet yet, there's still time for you to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but $150 in extra bonus bets. There's new promos every day, so if you're listening to this later, just open the app and check out what you've got any day of the week. Download the Hard Rock Bet app and make your first deposit now. Erickson, who's your first running back to sell?
I really wanted to put this guy on the show last week, but I got cold feet because I was thinking, man, he's playing the Giants. It's too good of a smash spot for him. And then he rushed for 58 yards on 12 carries against the New York Giants. So I'm talking about Saquon Barkley.
I was going to say, you always see the meme from The Wire, price of the brick going up. This is like price of the brick going down, price of the bark going down.
It has not been a good year for Saquon Barkley. He has not been the same guy as last year. The Eagles' offensive line has regressed immensely, whether that's because of injuries or just the new offensive coordinator. It's just the Eagles' offense is not functioning at as high a level. Now, the biggest concern with Barkley was just, I think, at least for myself, was he had so many touches last year. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? So, I mean, he's been healthy for the most of the season. I know he had a knee injury that he was dealing with before the Giants game. Maybe that's something that's kind of under the radar that's still bothering him. But the production has just really not been there for Saquon. He is PFF's 6th lowest graded running back this season. So, yes, the schedule has been tough, but things should have gotten better against the Giants. Like, that's why I was so underwhelmed, because it was a smash spot for him. Now, this week, it's the Minnesota Vikings. Again, another tough defense. Brian Flores is always tough on opposing offense. It's on the road. I think Saquon Barkley still has enough name brand cachet that you can still get a lot for him in a trade. So I think I'm done with Saquon. The Eagles offense is just really hard to trust right now. So I'm looking to put him on the trade block and move him.
Where is he rest of the season for you?
He's not in my top 5 running backs. So
is he in your top 10?
I think he's still in the top 10, yeah. Because like, especially with rest season rankings, you're still trying to capture the trade market value on a certain player. So even if I individually feel that, oh, well, he should be, absolutely buried, I don't necessarily want his trade value to be of a player that's just absolutely buried, because he is still Saquon Barkley. It's not like he's not going to be useless, but I think that I'd rather find other avenues of running back production. Like, would
you rather Saquon or Derrick Henry?
I kind of like buying low on Derrick Henry. I think in a deal you could probably do Saquon Barkley to get Derrick Henry plus, right? Wouldn't that be the best way to approach it?
I don't think you'd get a lot plus, but I do think you would get a little plus.
A little plus, but when I say a little, you could do, again, this would be another player we'll talk about, but could you do Saquon Barkley for Derrick Henry and Ricky Pearsall?
Maybe. I guess it depends on the manager. I'm not as excited about Derrick Henry rest of the season as other people seem to be. I am more apprehensive about the Ravens offense and just what Lamar will look. I know we're all assuming he's going to be back in week 8, and I think that probably will happen, but I don't know if he's going to look like MVP Lamar when he's back. Like if he's not mobile because hamstrings, like they don't want to push it. They don't want to risk it when they're, I know that they're in desperation mode and they're still viewing this as not a lost season, but eventually if they continue to lose, it will be a lost season. Like how much are they going to run Lamar in that case? Like how much is he going to actually open things up for Henry? I get nervous about that. So, he's an interesting piece. Like I would truthfully be willing to sell on both Saquon and Henry right now, which is why I threw him out there. What about somebody like Saquon or Genty? Who would you rather have?
Genty. I would.
Right.
I liked Genty more during draft season. I know that it started out kind of cold for Ashton Genty, but he's been getting it going the last couple weeks. The Raiders have no other choice but to kind of force him the ball. He is their entire offense. That's the only thing that's working. And the Raiders, as weird as it sounds, have one of the best schedules rest of season for fantasy running backs, and that's according to the strength of schedule tool. So also under the radar, Dylan Laube, the running back for the Raiders, he got hurt in the last game, and you saw Genty's route participation skyrocket. So that was kind of annoying where he wasn't playing in 2-minute drills. I think that they're ready to just unleash the playbook with him, and hey, we're not holding back. He's running all the routes, playing all the snaps, getting all the carries, especially with Brock Bowers out. So yes, I definitely would rather have Genty.
Let me give you one more. You could probably get more than this, but if the manager was holding firm, digging their heels in the sand, they were unwilling to give you any more, would you trade Saquon Barkley for just Javonte Williams straight up?
I think so, yeah. Give me Javonte. I'm a believer in Javonte. I just love what I've seen this year from him, and I know it's hard.
Imagine telling yourself that from August, that it's not that Saquon is going to stay healthy, and before we even get to week 7, you're going to be trading him away for Javonte Williams.
Well,
all right, who's your other running back to sell?
Ready to be cold takes exposed here on the program. The other running back I want to sell, I mentioned him earlier, talking about who you can try to use to get Isiah Pacheco on the cheap, is Tony Pollard. I've mentioned him on the show before as a sell. I think we talked about him as a sell last year. Just because when Tyjae Spears is healthy in this lineup, Pollard's production, his snaps, his touches, they all just decline dramatically. Last week, just 10 carries for 34 yards against a underrated Raiders defense. Spears was more effective as a rusher. He averaged 6.2 yards per carry, had 5 carries for 31 yards. Pollard had just a 20% rushing success rate. Spears has taken over the pass-catching role. If the Titans are playing with a negative game script, which they're most likely going to be as a bad team the rest of the season.
Yeah, you think?
Well, that means Spears is going to be playing more than Tony Pollard is. Again, it took 1 week, and Spears already outsnapped Tony Pollard 59% to 43%. Pollard's routes dipped to 25% of the dropbacks. So he's been a sell for me in every article I've written the last couple of weeks. So hopefully you guys, he's already off your roster, but if you're still stuck with him, I think that you can still move him for something like an Isiah Pacheco, who I just am much more optimistic about the rest of season outlook. He's a bottom 5 scheduled rest of season for running backs for the Tony Pollard. They just fired their head coach, and it's a tough matchup against the Patriots this week. So Tony Pollard is just trending in the complete wrong direction. And because there is a new head coach, maybe there's some semblance of, maybe they can kind of turn it around with Tony Pollard. But it could also go in the opposite direction where maybe they say, well, let's just ride Tyjae Spears. Let's do something like that. So just a lot of different outcomes with Pollard and this new coaching staff. And for the most part, I'm just not optimistic that it's going to change for him. So trade him away, package him with something else to try to move up for one of these other players to target, or even take a risk on someone that's injured right now and move Tony Pollard.
It's not that difficult to make the case for guys as buy lows and sell highs. I think one of the most valuable skill sets you can have in fantasy is knowing when to buy high and sell low. And that to me is much it's rarer to be good at that, and it's much more valuable to be good at that than to know, the buy lows and sell highs, more of the standard stuff. This is a sell low. This isn't like sell Tony Pollard. This is like going out of business sale on Tony Pollard. Like it's a fire sale. I am willing to sell him for peanuts. Like if you can get somebody like Pacheco, I think that's great, but like I wouldn't even need that. I would just get something that basically somebody that you're not thinking about to immediately drop. To me, that's a win over Pollard rest of the season. I really strongly agree with you on this one. I to the point where I don't really even have much more to add. I think it's clear what direction this backfield is going. I think it's clear what direction this team is going. Like, obviously they fired Callahan. Like, this is just not it's not a situation I want to be involved in. So if you can convince somebody to say, well, listen, like, the ceiling's not that high, but at least there's a floor here, I think that's wrong. But try and convince somebody of that and sell them. It's somebody who is maybe in desperate need at the position due to injuries or whatever and just needs a warm body. Get Pollard off your team. Let's go to buy, sell, or hold here, Erickson. We got 3 running back trios. First one for you, Woody Marks coming off the bye week, Rico Dowdle coming off a couple of amazing weeks, and DeAndre Swift also coming off a great week. So buy, sell, or hold Woody Marks, Rico Dowdle, DeAndre Swift.
So talked about Swift when we did the Monday Night Recap. He would be a hold for me. The Bears have a really good schedule coming up for their running backs, and he looked improved out of the bye week. I was very impressed with what Ben Johnson was able to do with the run game. So Swift would be the hold for me. Marks versus Dowdle, I think, is really interesting. I think Marks would probably be the guy that I would sell, and that's because I think that you can get a strong return for him. I don't think the Texans' offensive line is still fixed, and I don't think that they're going to magically just, all these wide open running lanes. Marks still has a Nick Chubb problem. Like, Nick Chubb, I don't think is going to be going away in any capacity, and we still don't really know what the ceiling case with Woody Marks is. We've seen the ceiling case for Rico Dowdle the last 2 weeks. What if Chuba Hubbard gets re-injured? I don't want to give that away. And it's funny, they've been asking Canales about, is Rico Dowdle the RB1 in this offense? And he's always like, we'll see, right? So he's been non-committal. Now, the Panthers running, it's interesting. If you look at rushing success rate this season, the top 2 guys in the top 4 are Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. You know who's nowhere near the top of that? Anyone on the Houston Texans. So I get the idea of Woody Marks. He could take over this backfield, but I just think the ceiling is in Carolina, which is what we've seen the last couple weeks. So even though it looks murkier with Chuba Hubbard potentially coming back, I've seen the ceiling from Rico Dowdle. He's shown that he can be an RB1, and that's why I want to have my roster rest of season, even though it may appear that Woody Marks has a easier path to the touches. Being the lead back in the Texans offense isn't necessarily the greatest thing to have. I know he had that one good week earlier in the year, but against the Ravens, he did nothing. So I'm going to buy Rico Dowdle, and then I would probably sell Woody Marks.
I would rather sell Dowdle to somebody who is thinking about him the way you are. And the main reason isn't even Chuba Hubbard. It's that these games came against Miami and Dallas, and like, he did what a good player is supposed to do. He took advantage of as great and enticing a matchup as you can have, but he's not facing Miami and Dallas the rest of the season. And that, I want to see how he does against a more reasonable run defense than those 2 teams. I'd rather buy Swift than Dowdle, honestly. And just hope that the Swift manager still views him as more of a floor, not a ceiling. And I would take that swing on Swift before I would on Dowdle, of those 3. Next trio here, Jaylen Warren, Chase Brown, David Montgomery. Again, that's Warren, Brown, and Montgomery.
A bunch of running backs I want to mostly sell. So I love these ones. Jaylen Warren's going to be the hold for me. You just got to, he's playing the Bengals this week. Like last week was the brutal matchup against the Cleveland Browns, so he underwhelmed, and the committee was kind of annoying. Both Kenneth Gainwell and Caleb Johnson were actually getting involved, and that was before the game was out of hand. But this week, you got to hold Jaylen Warren, and then you can consider flipping him after he faces the Cincinnati Bengals. So he would be the hold for me. Chase Brown is probably the sell. I was not encouraged by what I saw from the run game and Chase Brown's usage in Joe Flacco's first start. It's funny, I was wrong about everything when it came to Joe Flacco. Jamar Chase was fine, T. Higgins was fine for the most part, and then Chase Brown got no targets, which is the one thing I felt like I was most confident that Joe Flacco would do, was pepper his running back with targets, and that wasn't the case. In fact, Samaje Perine and Chase Brown had it close to a 60-40 split. Samaje Perine got the first carry in the game. Now, Brown's efficiency was a little bit better as a rusher, but, he's bottom 5 in the NFL in rushing success rate this season. The bell cow usage has not been there the last 2 weeks, for Chase Brown, and he's not been ripping off these explosive plays. So I think that you have to look at selling Chase Brown, because I think that so much of his appeal was just playing in a high-powered offense, and even with Joe Flacco maybe being an upgrade over Jake Browning, it's still not the same nearly as high of a ceiling as it once was when it was Joe Burrow as the quarterback. So Chase Brown would be the sell for me. And then David Montgomery would be the, I guess by default, the buy. He still has a high ceiling in case there's a Jahmyr Gibbs type of injury. Now, obviously, when Montgomery and Gibbs are both healthy, like we've seen Monty's role dramatically reduce compared to last year, except for that one game when he played at Cincinnati where he just had this, like, we talked about him as a sell high. I think, yeah, Dave Montgomery was a sell high last week. So it feels weird kind of saying now he's a buy after calling him a sell last week. You're kind of putting me in this position because I have to pick a buy, sell, hold for this exercise. So not cool. Yeah. Not cool, Worm. But based on who you've given me to deal with, I guess Dave Montgomery would be the buy. Unless you could buy Jaylen Warren before he plays the Bengals. I would rather do that. But yeah, Dave Montgomery, again, he'll also have better weeks. They're playing at home this week. He'll score touchdowns again. You know, playing on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs was a tougher spot for him. And to his credit, he did throw a touchdown, but it just got called back. Dude, it was funny, too, last week. I was thinking about when he threw that touchdown. I remember specifically on the show telling you, dude, Worm, how often is Dave Montgomery going to throw another touchdown? and then he almost does it the exact same week, the next week, in back-to-back games. I'm like, is this part of the game plan? How many touchdowns?
That's just what he does now.
Are we going to see props on Dave Montgomery over passing touchdowns?
Yeah.
Plus 3,000.
Yeah, that would not be enough for me to bet on it.
No, definitely not. So what do you think of those running backs in my breakdown?
I don't like any of them. I just wanted to see
I just
you
wanted to make
honestly.
you squirm.
Exactly. I have very little opinion on those running backs. I have very little interest in them. I think you did it. I think you pretty much picked what I would have picked.
Cool.
But I wouldn't have a ton of conviction in any of them. This is an interesting trio. It's the last one that I have for you. They're all backups. It's Tyler Algier, Kendre Miller, Tyjae Spears. Buy, sell, or hold Algier, Miller, and Spears.
I think I'm going to buy Tyjae Spears because I think that he has a chance to carve out the most productive fantasy role in the Titans' backfield, just based on the pass-catching negative game script. We just talked about Tony Pollard as a sell, so that would probably be the move I would make. Kendre Miller is probably the... Man, is he the sell here? I think the thing with him is Kamara's not getting traded. So what is his actual ceiling if he is the 1B and now a kind of three-headed committee with the Saints? I mean, I like adding Kendre Miller as a waiver wire guy, but if someone was going to aggressively trade for him off my roster, I would be more than happy to part ways. I think that the ceiling, as we've just kind of seen with the Saints offense in general, just not a very high ceiling with Spencer Rattler as your quarterback. So even though Kendre Miller has looked good at times this year, I don't think that I love him so much that I can't move him, because I don't think he's ever going to fully take over this backfield because Kamara's not going away and Taysom Hill is always going to be a red zone threat. So if all he's doing is getting a lot of carries in between the 20s, which are like the least valuable for fantasy, and someone else is more optimistic about him, I think I'd probably trade Kendre Miller away. And then I think Algier is the hold. Just this guy who has it. Where would we rank Algier if Bijan went down? I mean,
he would be inside my top
yes.
12. I wonder if 12 is the right number to say. He'd be inside my top
10.
12.
I mean, He is one of the most locked and loaded upside handcuffs because we saw his rookie year when he rushed for 1,000 yards. And the only reason, and again, to your credit, when you mentioned him earlier in the show, talking about, man, what would he be like on another team? It's not his fault that the team drafted Bijan Robinson the next year. He was really good as a rookie, and he's a free agent this year too. So maybe getting someone else to consider in dynasty formats, go scoop him, because he could be on a new team next year now. That may or not be a good thing, because it could be like the whole Mike Davis profile where you're like...
He's not the type who's going to like unseat a real star, but if he has an opportunity, like if Javonte wasn't there and he was on Dallas, we'd be all over him, right? Like that, like he is good enough to take advantage of being the only guy in the backfield on a good offense. Again,
it's not his fault that his team just happened to draft Bijan Robinson, right? Like most in most backfields, he would be the RB1 on that team. So I just think that he's too valuable. He has too much upside to get rid of. Like, he's a hold for me. And it's funny, like, we always have to rank him every week in the waiver wire rankings because he's never owned enough. But I mean, when you're in a pinch, you can still throw him out there. I mean, last night we saw him score a red zone touchdown. So there are much worse flex options than a Tyler Allegier. Although I know that he's hard to press the button on because Bijan is the guy there. His upside is immense if something were to happen to Bijan, and I think, yeah, in a pinch, you can start him.
I don't know why I'm struggling to find him in our rest of season rankings here.
He's also a hard guy
here he
to
is.
rank.
Okay. Yeah, he's RB41 rest of the season. I had to skip past him. Yeah, I mean, he has 3 touchdowns already this season as a backup. Like, I think that will continue. Roughly a touchdown every other game.
3 more touchdowns than Breece Hall does.
Yeah. The point is, I like all 3 of these names, honestly. I would like them all on my bench. Allegier, Kendre Miller, and Tyjae Spears. Spears is the one most likely to get a workload. I would say Kendre Miller is the least likely to get a workload that I'm interested in, barring an injury of the 3. But I would like to have all 3 on my roster if I can.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it. I think that Allegier has the highest ceiling if there's an injury. Spears is the most likely to actually take over the backfield without an actual injury. And Miller has the least upside of the 3, even if he were to be the RB1 on his offense.
Don't forget about our weekly trade live stream on our YouTube channel where you can come and ask your specific fantasy trade questions. We'll be with you every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. For those listening on the podcast, just go to youtube.com/fantasypros, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified of all of our weekly live streams. Be sure to check out part 2 with our receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends. For Erickson, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.